a scion of many worlds. He's troubled as he gets back to the temple. The 10 seconds it took was just enough time for the rush of battle to die off and get him thinking. He knows too much. That flash of insight, that memory, it fits perfectly. It's supposed to be there. He's not an idiot. He knows whose memory it was, but that person is dead. Dead and gone. He can still remember being Emmanuel for a single moment. He has never been Emmanuel in his entire life. The two contrarian facts boil in his mind and he shakes his head to clear them. At the moment, they'll only screw things up and around. He can have himself a nice and comfy existential crisis when there isn't a city burning to the ground around him. He'll figure out where that flash of memory came from later. If it were the result of a botched or perhaps incomplete attempt to bring him back from death, then it would explain a fair amount. He presses it down entirely as Lady Allure approaches. Not all of us were so lucky as to find a champion to fight. Most of our forces will be needed to keep the temple in our hands. That's fine. I can move fast, and so long as I have a safe place to bring them, I can get them out pretty quickly. Good. There's another matter of concern. Tell me. The weapon you retrieved, it's new. Pardon? The weapon is not an ancient relic. We thought we were among the most advanced, being able to access and preserve our artifacts, but this one is newly made. Oh fuck. Are they handmade or machined? Pardon? Lady Allure asks. The word sounded like trade, but she doesn't recognize it. Does it have the markings of a craftswoman at every piece, or is there the sort of unfeeling precision you normally only get from a machine? There are small markings, craftswoman signs on almost every piece, little flares showing that many craftswomen came together to make this. The midwife he handed the weapon off to says, and he breathes a sigh of relief. Okay, so that means they're being slowly produced and we won't be walking into a wall of them. Still, we're going to need to track down the source. If someone's handing these out to anarchists and criminals, then we have a very, very big problem, Jasper says, and there are grim faces all around. All right, as for countering them, remember it takes a moment for the shot to go off. If you see the barrel start to glow move, do not try to block it, do not try to deflect it. This is in a league well and truly beyond what any Aramenta on this world can do. They train to burn through stone. This treats metal like tinder. Noted. We will exercise all caution, she says, holding the weapon a little more carefully. It does have weaknesses. Greatest is that it can only be used a few times every minute. After that is the limit of range. There's no time to explain in full, but the further you are, the weaker the blow will be, just like any other ranged weapon. I understand. Good. Do we have any ideas where the captured midwives are? I have a map, Lady Allure says, pulling out a scroll and unfurling it. The locations with red markings are where our women were last seen. How good is your perception through those antennae? Do Earthany truly have a second sight? In a sense, I detect energies that are often intrinsic to life itself. I can sense around corners, through thin walls and doors, but not through water, and the wetter the air, the worse the range and the greater my distraction. Distract? Oh, right, raining seasons. The only time most Earthani are aggressive. She begins to ask before cutting herself off. The only time Earthani have the burning loins, Jasper clarifies, and there's a sudden look of understanding among many of the midwives. That explains something I thought I saw some time ago, one mutters. Is there a priority? Is there a single or several of these markings in particular you're concerned about, or should I just hurry? Hurry, Lady Allure says, and he blurs out of the building and into the sky. He examines the map while soaring upwards to get a proper view. The city is huge. The whole of Bright Dawn is a singular city-state that crosses several islands with massive ports built into each of them, ports that have expanded outwards as more and more people lived on the docks. Each island is a district, and this is the central one with the majority of the midwives. Medieval, magical Venice in the midst of a brutal riot with laser cannons. He scans the map and quickly finds where he's hovering over. A beam of light cuts the air below, not too far away from where one of the midwives had gone missing. He tucks the map away and dives. He has no idea what the midwife will look like, but he guesses that she'll be either hiding or held prisoner. Either way, it's a rescue mission. He lands on a rooftop and is silhouetted by the partially clouded moon as he looks down. He focuses more on his antenna as he frowns downwards. There's a buildup of nearby energy and he smirks. He aimed it just right. The laser wielder is right below him. Furthermore, the energy shows him something else. The destructive light blasts out of the window and into the crowd below. Several lives are lost as the killer smirks. She thinks things are going perfectly, unaware that right behind her is the looming form of Jasper. Then she turns as her instincts jangle and tries to scream before his claw clamps around the barrel of the cannon and her mouth at the same time. He separates both with ease and breathes out a tiny tongue of bright flame to illuminate the room to get a good look at the terrified Lyrak woman staring up at him while hog-tied and gagged. He steps up to her and sets aside the weapon before gently snipping the ropes and letting her wrestle the gag off. She stares up at him in shock and he looks her over for injuries. The robes are very much of the Grand Midwives. Are you Jasper Blue, the Urthani from Beyond the Stars?" she asks slowly. He nods. "Are you here to help me?" He nods again in response. "The main temple is mostly safe. Grab this weapon, I will take you there. You can also have time to interrogate this fool to try and understand what's going on," Jasper says, ignoring the laser gunner trying and failing to stab him. He can't keep a smirk off his face as her rusted knife just plain snaps against his arm. "Right, I need to stay calm," she says, grabbing the laser cannon and standing up next to him. He nods and sweeps her up in his unoccupied arm. "That's the spirit," he says gently and quickly flies outside, rescued girl in one hand and the woman she needed rescuing from dangling from the other. She lets out a small scream as he gets her to the temple in less than a minute. "Malaya!" His entrance is greeted by the name of the woman he rescued. This one was holding her hostage. She held the weapon and was firing into the peoples, Jasper says, tossing the gunner at the feet of the midwives. He then turns and takes off again into the sky to head to the next marker. The next four are just hiding, slipped away from the crowds and hiding on the top of buildings. There are not a lot of flight-capable peoples in Bright Dawn, so it's a decent way to hide. But as the last one of the bundle is trapped by a fire, not a flawless method. Thankfully, the robes of the Order are very, very distinctive in Bright Dawn, so he can easily spot them. Then he runs into a small group of them, a full 10 tending to the injured and running out of safety. At first they refuse to move, so he has to get Lady Allure to gather her squires and takes their place in protecting the temple as they organize the evacuation of the group. The routine is a little complicated in that there isn't some champion on the eastern approach that he can just duel and scare off the rest, so he has to improvise, which he does, with fire. There may not be a grand duel, but he can send people running with the threat of literal fire from the sky. "Flee, flee, you wretched monsters. Return to your homes and quell the pointless wrath. There is no prize beyond pain to be earned. Flee!" He commands them as the crowd scream and conveniently miss that he hasn't actually set any of them on fire. As he stands guard and several people are brought to the temple for shelter, reinforcements arrive in the form of a series of Nagasha that seem to fall out of the sky. He actually sees their bodies go from a flattened gliding state to a more rounding, slithering one. The cloud Nagasha at first give him a bit of stink eye, but then have things explained to him and he has them as reinforcements rather than another problem. The evacuation isn't without issues as two of the Saramali squires get injured in the process. But with the reinforcing Nagasha, Jasper heads out again to find more. There are still 41 women that need saving. Lord Blue, Lord Blue, one of them shouts as he turns to leave. Yes? You need to head out to the most distant island. Many are being held there or are being brought there. She explains to him, and he nods as he pulls out his map and she indicates the area. Most of the problems are there. With the Nagasha to help guard the temple, the paladins are going to fly out and help the rescue. All right, so we have priority. Got it, he says before glancing at her. She gestures for him to go and he takes off into the sky. It takes him a few moments to cross the city and find himself above the area in question. If he didn't know that he needed to come here, he would have avoided this part of the city. It's peaceful compared to the rest. The riots aren't here. He lands in the middle of a courtyard of a square building and starts pacing around. This is the building indicated, but he can't sense anything. Then it clicks. His senses are muffling in a certain direction. There's somewhere with unusually humid air in it, blocking his antenna's range. He uses a touch of axiom to turn the tumblers of the lock and creeps into the building, immediately bonking his shin against a chair he had no way of telling was there. He sets it back up and creeps into the room where the higher humidity is. It appears to be a sitting room, numerous chairs and couches and a definite briny stench. He senses around and finds where the humidity is pouring out from. The carved wooden mural is easily moved aside and he finds a thin stairwell going down. Of course. It takes him a moment and he churns at the problem. Wait, knowledge came to him when his defenses were down. What if it can be brought up while he's awake and aware? All right, I don't have time to bargain, but I need knowledge. Lives are at stake and I need to fit through a tiny area. Do you have anything for me? He asks himself and nothing answers. Of course. He grunts in frustration, then grins as an idea comes to him. He focuses axiom into his ear holes and taps the wall. There's an opening far below. He focuses his axiom and vanishes far below. He immediately has to dodge a laser blast. Ah, there you are, he remarks calmly as he sees the barrel warm up again. He blurs forward and then teleports as the cannon goes off again. You're going to drop the building on us doing that, he says, appearing beside the Jorgwa woman and grabbing the weapon. He then catches the tail spikes in the side of his breastplate. They then wedge themselves there, and there's a moment's pause. Do you really, truly think this is a good idea? She at first seems to hold her hands up in surrender, then grabs his wrists and lunges for his face with an expanding maw where the teeth are growing into knives. His proboscis is shortly buried in her neck.